Dad.
See you, girls. Drive careful.
The girls got a little late start, and they said to me, "Mom, will you take the bridesmaids' dresses?"
But about 8:30 then, our daughter-in-law Bree called and asked if we knew anything about the girls.
We called the hospital first, and they said that there had been an accident, and there were 3 girls, and that they were sending a state trooper, a policeman, to come and talk to us.
On the Metrolink platform, and it's April 14th, and look who we have. St. Louis tourists.
I got pregnant
They're visiting for Easter weekend.
6 months after we were married,
Fun time.
and so then we had Joey.
Today's Krista's birthday.
Wait a minute, what?
Today is Krista's birthday.
Today? How old is she?
As her.
Where is she?
Here's the birthday girl.
Where is she?
Then 2 years after that, we had Krista. And 2 years after that, we had Nikki.
This is Krista. Nikki came over tonight. They're on their choir trip from Minneapolis, and they are just being mauled by the kids.
And then 5 years later, we were surprised with Jessica.
Our last vacation in Florida as a family last October, but we just thought our kids are getting older. This might be a last chance to really have a family vacation.
Here are 2 lovely ladies, Mom and Dad, walking along the beach.
Joey couldn't go because he had to work, get ready for his wedding. So it was Joe and me and the 3 girls. And we had such a good time. Just a lot of talking time, just enjoying each other. And I'm so thankful we were able to do that.
And that was just such a God thing, and just being together and enjoying ourselves.
Hey guys, look at my dress.
My girls were so excited because they just loved Bree like a sister. Bree didn't have any sisters.
I was just really close to him right away.
They wanted to see us together, even before I knew that, that we were going to be together. My sisters tried to actually set Bree and I up.
I can do my hair.
So the girls were just anticipating that. You know, that was like the big focus of the whole year.
Our girls had to meet everyone in Wilmer, and just 2 hours west. Checked all the oil and everything. My daughter wasn't always the best at watching her car, so I made sure everything was good, you know. That night was going to be all the groomsmen were having their little gathering, all the bridesmaids, the girls were having their gathering.
And the girls got a little late start.
I was in the driveway seeing them off.
See you, Dad.
See you, girls. Drive safely.
Bye.
And they said to me, "Mom, will you take the bridesmaids' dresses?" And I said, "Well, why don't you want them?" And they said, "Well, we want you to iron them for us." They didn't want to have to iron them.
That morning, Debbie and I prayed. We just prayed, God, glorify yourself through this wedding in however you choose. And we even said whether we're laughing or crying. And then later I just thought, that's not a typical wedding prayer, but that's what was on our hearts.
Yeah, I just took a sip actually. I just got it today.
I invited all my bridesmaids and personal attendants. And we were waiting at the restaurant, the Green Mill restaurant.
Debbie had started ironing the dresses, and she just had the feeling of things just didn't seem to be going right.
We were waiting and just talking, and I had talked to him a little while ago. He said he was on his way, and Krista, Nikki, and Jessica were on their way too, and they called to say that they were running a little bit late. We waited for probably about 45 minutes. So I kept trying to call them, and then I called Joey, and he was trying to call them, and then I called Joe and Deb.
I felt alarmed, but I thought, I'm not gonna give in to fear. And so I made a joke.
The highway there is a busy highway, so it's not like a road that someone wouldn't drive by and see anything. So I knew that something was, because they weren't answering their cell phones, and so I knew something was serious. And
Can you run 661 West 1st and see if there's a...
I was working an afternoon shift on January 1st of 2004, and I had actually just completed investigating an accident that had taken place probably about a half mile behind us. And I just remember seeing all the smoke and all the debris on the roadway, and I knew coming up to the scene that it was going to be a bad accident, something that was out of the norm.
We called the hospital first, and they said that there had been an accident, and there were 3 girls, and that they were sending a state trooper, a policeman, to come and talk to us. And so right then, like as soon as we hung up the phone, we just started praying.
Hello?
I called the Wilmer Hospital. The person who answered the phone actually identified himself as the medical examiner, who is the county coroner.
I could hear the voice from the telephone say medical examiner, and I screamed, you know, and then I heard him say all 3, and I felt like I was gonna take off out of my body. I didn't know what to do. And I just remember slamming my hand down on the table and going, no, God. And I couldn't sit still. I think for like an hour, I walked around saying, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I went outside. I was in my pajamas and my bare feet, and I went outside, and I'm going, what am I gonna do? I couldn't sit still. I didn't know what I was gonna do.
I could not accept all this sorrow, even though I accepted the truth that my girls are gone. With the Lord, they're not lost, but they're gone. I can't hold them again. I can't hug them again. I can dream and I can vision, but...
Joe and I had renewed our vows 10 years ago or something, and so I was trying on my dress, and Krista and Nikki saw it, and they were just, oh, can I try it on? So they tried it on, so I took their picture. And then when we moved here, Jessica, she tried on my dress. So I had a picture of all three of them in my wedding dress. Anyway, God just led me right to that picture and said, they're my brides. And there was comfort. It was like God just, he just comforted me.
Now, this is Channel 5 Eyewitness News at 6.
It's the kind of story that makes you shake your head in disbelief.
3 young sisters killed in a crash on their way to be in their brother's wedding. The accident happened on Highway 12 outside of Wilmer about 6:30 last night. The State Patrol says the girls were trying to pass a vehicle and collided head-on with a minivan.
19-year-old Krista Mayer, 17-year-old Nikki, and 12-year-old Jessica were killed in the crash.
The 3 Mayer girls were headed to the bachelorette party for their brother's wedding. It was supposed to happen here at the Wilmer Holiday Inn, but less than a mile away, they slammed head-on into this Plymouth Voyager. The people that I could see outside of the vehicles were in the other vehicle, the minivan. And Caitlin, who was driving the minivan, was sitting outside of the vehicle, and her mom was attending to her. So at that point, I ran immediately over to the Mayer vehicle, and the driver's compartment was so crushed in and so smashed in, I couldn't get to the driver at all. She was encapsulated by the vehicle. So at that point, I went around to the passenger side of the vehicle, and I tended to the front seat passenger, and I reached through the broken window to see if there was any pulse or if she was breathing at all. And I didn't feel a pulse, but as I was tending to her, her arm moved just slightly. And there was another gentleman, I don't even know who he was, came to the other side of the vehicle, and I said, I need some help over here. I've got one that I believe is still alive. The gentleman that came to the scene pointed out that there was another girl laying in the back seat. She was all covered up with blankets.
Nikki and Jessica had died instantly because of the trauma, and Krista had a pulse, but she was dead. I mean, she was brain dead. So they had to try to resuscitate her. But after all was said and done, because they were all donors, which I'll tell you later, but when they had gotten into Krista's heart, they realized she had died instantly too, because her aorta had been severed because of the trauma. So they were instantly with the Lord.
Godspeed, your souls return deep from these waters, straight to the angel's arms, beyond the sea. How sweet the days gone by, how sharp the corners, how blue the canvas sky that set you free. And oh, somehow I know we're not apart, for I still hold your love inside my heart.
Of course, we had no idea what we were going to do with the wedding. How can we do both these things?
Joey on the phone said, "Mom, I think we're supposed to go ahead." He said the girls would be mad if we did not have this wedding. And I felt that same way. But I thought, okay, we're all in shock. We don't know what we're doing, so we better wait.
He had already talked a little with Pastor about, do we even have a wedding? Can we have a wedding? And Joey just said to me, he said, the girls were so excited to have the wedding and to be in it. He says, I'm sure the girls would want it.
All I could think of was how excited they were for it and how much they wanted us together. And so I did think that we need to still go on with the wedding in honor of them.
This is the 10 o'clock news. 3 sisters on their way to celebrate their brother's wedding never make it.
The family finds itself on an emotional roller coaster, preparing for a funeral next week and a wedding on Saturday.
I have 3 girls that would one day possibly get married, but God showed me they're his bride. He's their bridegroom, and they are with him right now, and they're beautiful brides.
In Wilmer, there's a lot of hugging and crying, and our pastor friend was with us in a quite emotional moment, and then we all went to the hospital together.
It was just really hard for me to see them. Joe embraced them, and he hugged them. And I did, but it was just, see, they were donors, and they were in the process of doing that. I don't know what you call it, but so they were on tables, and it was terrible.
To kind of say goodbye and to really let the reality sink in, but it was very hard, and those images I still see them sometimes. And
what are you living for? What are you hoping for? What are you?
So after that, we had to go to the church, and we saw where the wedding was going to be and got ready for the rehearsal. And we did the dinner, and people even laughed. And I think they did that out of compassion.
But at the same time, I had on my mind these responsibilities. I need to talk to my car insurance. I need to talk to the funeral home. I need to decide on cemetery. It was such a contradiction of feeling. Later I thought, God feels tragedy and sorrow in his heart all the time over the world. And I thought it was a little bit of a glimpse into God's heart.
Both joy and sadness expected at a Wilmer's wedding ceremony tomorrow.
It will be short. 3 bridesmaids, Krista, Nikki, and Jessica Mayer of New Brighton, died in a head-on crash last night.
The wedding rehearsal went on as scheduled here in Wilmer tonight. Joe and Debbie Mayer's son will be married here tomorrow, but their 3 daughters will be buried next week.
I didn't sleep hardly that night of January 2nd.
I thought for sure I would lose it. I mean, even if my girls were here, I always cry at weddings. I'm a very emotional person.
Krista was gonna do my nails, and so that was really hard. But my nails did get done. So
they didn't choose any more bridesmaids. They left it the way it was.
It was very real that they weren't there, and I'm sure for everyone, all of our guests as well, that was very noticeable, that there were 3 girls missing, and there still were 7 guys, so throughout the whole ceremony there was the unbalance that still didn't let anyone forget.
For sure, I would lose it. But I didn't cry. And I think it's because when I saw Joey and I saw the anticipation in his eyes, just the way he was looking at Bree as she was walking down the aisle, I had a whole vision of Jesus looking at my girls as they were walking down the Golden Street or whatever and coming into his arms. It was that anticipation and that tenderness, and I don't know, it comforted me.
That day really was perfect. Like if anything went wrong, I don't know about it. So, I mean, it was all that we had hoped for.
Joey, you may kiss your wife.
No one questioned us at the wedding. I still don't understand how tears were held back for both of us. And we had a line outside the church where people would greet us, congratulate us, and there were a few close friends of my sister's who all they could do was give us a hug in tears, and that's very understandable.
Well, the wedding was Saturday. The funeral was that following Wednesday.
We had to go to the funeral home and we had to pick out like what the program would say. We had to pick out the caskets. It was just unreal to me.
This was their wedding, and we used that term and that theme really in the funeral.
Channel 5 Eyewitness News at 10.
Hundreds of mourners have just arrived at a Twin Cities church to remember 3 sisters who died in a car crash. Right now, the brother and sister-in-law of the Mayer sisters are singing at the funeral a very emotional song, I Can Only Imagine. Let's listen in.
Will I sing hallelujah?
My sisters and I grew up singing together, and Bree loved to sing with my sisters, so it was really a part of our memories of my sisters, so it felt like the appropriate thing to do.
Though it was a very hard way to find out, but yet I found out just how many people my kids touched, and they would tell us stories, and they wrote in the guest books. And our pastor of the church, he was going to close, and then just the crowds just started coming down the aisles. No way to count, but I would imagine 200 or so students wanting to commit their lives to the Lord.
Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in all of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? To my knees will I fall?
At one point I said to my wife Debbie, I said, we should just we should have the burial clothes as the bridesmaid dresses that they were going to wear, and have the jewelry that was Bree's gift to them as bridesmaids to match the dresses, and then my wife just thought that was wonderful.
Life will never be the same. But if you adjust to your new life, and I personally don't think I'll ever just adjust. I mean, there'll always be that heartache. But it's not a heartache without hope. It's not a heartache that hasn't birthed purpose.
God is bigger than any accident. That was really one of our main beliefs, and is. And I know without the reality of God's being with us, things would not have happened at all. Even our ability to support and love each other and not let all this emotion turn on each other, because of the reality of God and the reality that our girls are with God, it gives us the ability to love each other more than we ever did.
How sweet the days gone by, how sharp the corners, how blue the canvas sky that set you free, and oh, somehow I know we're not apart.
Today is Father's Day, and my wife had left me a Father's Day gift. Beautiful framed picture of my girls, and the script on there was, "You will always be in my heart," and they'll always be in my heart. Whether Father's every day, they're still my girls.
I still hold your love inside my heart. Godspeed, your souls return deep from these waters, straight